So the NBA draft happened, and I have some opinions on this, but let's get started. First, let's talk about these picks. First, Victor Wembanyama. We knew he was going first overall. He's a Spur now, and it's been known for a while, that Victor Wembanyama was going to be the first pick. It was known that he was the one who was going to change the league in terms of making teams want to rebuild just to get him, like a LeBron type figure. And it was known that whichever team got the first pick was going to draft him. Now, with that being said, even though that is the case, it's also cemented that he was going to be the first pick when the Spurs got the first pick. As we know, the Spurs love big men. Their three best players of all time, right? Which are Tim Duncan, David Robinson, and Tony Parker, or Kawhi Leonard if you want to say him, have all been, two of them are big men and the others are a guard and a wing. But realistically, we know that they like building through big men, through generational big men. And they've had two number one overall picks in the history of their franchise, and they've both used it for big men, generational big men. Now, is Victor going to be generational? Is he going to have injury problems? What is his career going to look like? We don't know, and that's up for him and the Spurs to play out and see how that's going to happen. But for right now, he really looked like the best pick out of one of the best drafts in recent times. Second overall, we have Brandon Miller. This shocked me, as the Hornets are a team which looked confused, right? Like, out of the top three picks, one's a guard, and they already have their point guard for the future in LaMelo Ball, and the other one's a wing. And even though, yes, they did need a star wing, would have been nice for them. Really, what Charlotte needed was a big man. Let's face it. They have Mark Williams. They have forwards like PJ Washington. But really, Charlotte needed a big man. So they were just forced into a corner and said, which one fits our team the best? I am a big Scoot Henderson guy. I like his mentality. I like how he plays the game. And in my opinion, this was a bad pick, right? As having a young backcourt, especially with a guy who passes and another one who scores, seems better in the long run. Moving on to cut it abruptly, I just want to say that I do like Brandon Miller. I think he's a good player. But in my opinion, for the Hornets, since you didn't have a player which played your desired position, it was best to go just best player available. I like Brandon Miller, and I understand it was Michael Jordan who made the pick, so he's not that good at running NBA franchises or making decisions. But in my opinion, even if it was just they got the pick to trade him for someone else, right? That second overall pick is extremely valuable, especially in such a touted draft. So, in my opinion, that was the wrong pick. Scoot to Portland. This, in my opinion, was also the wrong pick. Scoot doesn't deserve to be in Portland. Portland has two point guards maxed out, right? They have Anthony Simons, which has $100 million deal over the course of, I think, 4 years or 5 years. And then they have Dame, which has a Supermax extension, which is going to run them like $60 million in 2027. So why do you draft a guard? I understand that it's going to be hard at that position, especially since the next three picks after Scoot Henderson were all guards as well. So you have to make a decision. It's either you're going to draft Scoot or you're going to pay the price. But in my opinion, let's be clear. This is not a good This is not a good pick. Scoot should have been the second pick. He fits way better in Charlotte. But if we're being honest, he should be traded, right? There's no place in Portland for Scoot. They have three different guards. And if Portland is trying to contend right now, then I would say either trade Scoot or trade Dame. And then now you have two options for your future, which both, in my opinion, work best when it comes to what you need to do. I want to say that Thompson got drafted fourth overall. I like him for the Rockets as he's really a point guard, right? And Jalen Green gets moved to the two, and finally Kevin Porter Jr. gets to play the bench position. Actually passes the ball, even though he's a scoring guard. The only thing that I want to see in Houston is how are they going to play basketball? I understand that Ime Udoka is now their coach, so they won't be playing the stupid brand of basketball which they played before. But it's going to look very interesting in the long run to see what are the Rockets going to be like. They're the weirdest team in the league by far, as most of their guards are just these crafty, switchy scorers, and they have a passing big man who looks like Arvydas Sabonis, but which is much faster, right? So, in my opinion, the Rockets are shaping out to be a phenomenal team if all of their picks go right. But I do want to see the brand of basketball that they play, as it's going to be very unorthodox and very shifty, and there's probably going to be a lot of three-pointer shot and a lot of isolation scoring, which I don't know if could win you a championship ever. Then finally, for the last pick of the top five, we have All-Star Thompson, which I'm surprised he got drafted that high. Some people were saying that he was going to be drafted at fifth, some people weren't, but in my opinion, it's the right pick. He's a great player, even though he's not as good as his brother, but really, let's face it, Detroit needed a shooting guard for the future. They have Bojan Bogdanovic, but let's face it, the dude is very old and he's just basically giving the most effort that he can to Detroit to hopefully get another contract in the NBA. But in 2 years, Bojan is going to be out of rotations, or if he is, he's just going to be limited to being a spot-up shooter. So they needed someone to build around for the future. And in my opinion, I like the All-Star pick because All-Star has always been, a team player. He's never been like this, like Amin holds the ball a lot. He needs it to play the way that he plays. And he works best when he's handling the ball. But All-Star has always been able to play off ball, as he's always played shooting guard and small forward. And it helps the Pistons as they already have their guards, they have their center in Jalen Duren, and they have enough big men to trade around. But that small forward position, they needed somebody. So I like that pick. In general, some winners are the Mavericks, who traded away Davis Bertans and got a couple of picks in this draft, which were pretty good. I want to say that some, like the Rockets, were extreme winners, and I want to say that the Magic probably fumbled as they had two picks and they should have taken Grady Dick, right? And in the end, when it comes to this entire draft, I just want to say that it was a good draft. A lot of teams did what they had to do, and in my opinion, what happened today or yesterday, as a matter of fact, will affect the league, and we're going to see how these players shape up in the future. I do believe that there's some which will bust, let's just face it. There's a big chance that happens, and I want to see which ones are superstars and were actually made for it. But if we're being honest, Victor Wembanyama is the side of the draft. He's who's everyone's looking at for potential. Is he going to be an all-star this year? How good is he going to be in the NBA? When Giannis puts his shoulder on him, how is he going to take that? And in my opinion, what us as fans and as people who watch this game have to look at now is how good is Victor Wembanyama going to be? He's in a great franchise with a great coach who just signed an extension, if I'm not mistaken, to be there for years to come. And he's got the right mentality, and he's the first overall pick. He's got the build, he's got everything, and let's see how it works out. Will injuries riddle him, or will he come out on top and be one of the top 10 greatest players of all time? Let's see.